Rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Peace and the mercy and blessings of God be with you all. Thank you for joining me for this live post. I'm your brother in faith, Shabir Ali. In this post, I would like to address some issues that were brought up by Sam Shamoun in a recent video in which he was commenting on the debate that took place between Anthony and me last Saturday. So I want to quickly look up the video so that that Sam did, so that I can post it here for you. Here it is. So this is the link. Just post it for you so that if you're interested, you can look at that and you will know what it is that I was talking about. Okay. Yeah. So, Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salam ala rasulillah. I begin in the name of Allah, and I ask God to send peace and blessings upon all of His noble messengers, His prophets, and all of the righteous people of all time. I ask Allah to bless you all, protect all of the people around you, keep you all safe from COVID-19, from every other sickness, disease, stress, and distress. So in that video, Sam is his usual uncivil self, and so it's hard to listen to him that way because you have to kind of like block out all of this, his constant verbal abuse. Saying Allah is a false prophet, God, Muhammad is a false prophet, the Quran is a false book, Quran is worse than toilet paper, things like that. And then Shabir is a liar, he's a charlatan, he's a son of the devil, and he goes on and on and on with these, verbal abuses. So one has to be very patient and ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for patience in listening to what he has to say. I mean, if he has good points, we would be glad to hear the good points, because I hear good points and I correct myself all of the time. But it turns out that he doesn't have good points, and he's using that kind of verbal abuse as a substitute. So maybe his fan base is like this. They like this kind of verbal abuse, and maybe they get a kick out of that, and they love to hear that. So he's feeding them the same thing that they love to hear. And maybe they're not very critical. They don't listen with that ear to find out what is the truth of the matter. They just want to hear their guy, lambasting somebody else. So anyway, I think three issues are of importance for me to clarify here. And time does not permit to go into great depth with all of these, but I'll try. Okay, so the first issue is the question of my quoting the Quran. So in my opening presentation, I quoted Surah 20, verse 122, where it says God chose Adam. That's in the English. And then somewhere in the debate later on, maybe in the second debate. So in the first debate, in my opening presentation, I had my written speech. I read it out. It says Surah 20, verse 122. At first, I said Surah 7, verse 122. And later on, within a few seconds, I realized that was my mistake, and I said Surah 20, verse 122. So that's settled. Allah chose Adam. It's very clear there. But in my second debate with Anthony, I brought up the point that if you say that Jesus died for our sins according to what Paul explains in his letters in the New Testament, then he's saying, because the first Adam sinned, the second Adam came to give life by dying on the cross. The first Adam brought death and sin and death, and so on. So a lot of that depends on there being a first Adam in the way that Paul is conceiving of this. And if one accepts the evolutionary paradigm, then it's hard to see how the scheme of Jesus coming as the second Adam makes sense. And what has been found in recent studies is that there never was a time when the human population was less than, say, 7,000 people. So estimates range, between 7 to 10,000 people as the bottleneck. The population might expand, might contract, might expand, might contract due to various factors, but it never was less than, say, 7,000 people. And this is demonstrated by genetic studies. So if that is the case, then this whole scenario that is described in the book of Genesis, with Adam and Eve being created as the first couple, this is not scientifically viable nowadays. And of course, Muslims have that idea as well, but this idea, like this revision, affects Christianity, in a major way, and Christian scholars are still discussing and debating among themselves about how to navigate this. Like, what are we going to do about this? Because it has a major impact on them. Whereas, the story of Adam is there in the Quran, but it doesn't have such a major impact on Islamic theology if it turns out that there were other people along with Adam. In fact, one can interpret the Quran, I would argue, in a way that is compatible with this modern discovery. And one of the aspects of that is what is the subject of this immediate discussion here at the moment. So I said that when it says in the Quran that God chose Adam, this would mean that, this is one of the indications that there are other people around him, and he's just one of them. God chose him to make him his prophet, a prophet to the rest of the people. And so it so happens, though, that in quoting that verse, instead of saying ثُمَّ اجْتَبَاهُ رَبُّهُ, which is what the verse says, Surah 20, verse 122, I said فَاجْتَبَاهُ رَبُّهُ. So فَاجْتَبَاهُ رَبُّهُ. So I changed the conjunction from ثُمَّ to fa. But still, اجْتَبَاهُ رَبُّهُ, God chose him. But now, Sam Shamoun now took this as his, beating stick to beat me with. So he goes now, he says, فَاجْتَبَاهُ رَبُّهُ. Remember, listen, guys, listen to what he's saying. فَاجْتَبَاهُ رَبُّهُ. فَاجْتَبَاهُ رَبُّهُ. And where can we find these words? فَاجْتَبَاهُ رَبُّهُ. Only in Surah 68, verse number 50. And then let's go to that passage, and let's go to all of the books of Tafsir ibn Abbas, and all of these. And what do we find there? It says that this is about Jonah. It's not about Adam, it's about Jonah, because that's where it says, فَاجْتَبَاهُ رَبُّهُ. He makes so much of a deal about this that before I got to the end of the video, because I figured, I listened to that enough and the subject had changed to something else. So then I wrote a piece on my blog saying that, that was my mistake, that I said fajtabahu instead of thumajtabahu. But in the end, the verse does say, Surah 20, verse 122, that God chose him, ijtabahu. And even though I, mistakenly read the wrong conjunction at that place, but it doesn't change that basic meaning. And it is only after I listened to the rest of the video that I realized that that the man knew. The man knew that ijtabahu is there. But now he's saying that ijtabahu, he says towards the end of the video, ijtabahu does not mean that God chose him in the way that Shabir is saying. It says God chose him for repentance. And indeed, one of the tafsirs that he seems to have consulted brings out that meaning, because it's فَاجْتَبَاهُ ثُمَّ اجْتَبَاهُ رَبُّهُ فَتَابَ عَلَيْهِ وَهَدَى. Then God chose him and repented to him and guided him. So he's saying, well, that's the meaning. It doesn't mean what Shabir is saying. But of course, that's only one tafsir. I have here with me the tafsir of Razi, which I've just brought up on my phone here in the Quranic Researcher program. So I don't know if you can see it easily. So the tafsir of Razi towards the end of this discussion about ijtabahu on Surah 20, verse 122. So you see, it says at the bottom there, wal hidayah, because it says, ثُمَّ اجْتَبَاهُ رَبُّهُ فَتَابَ عَلَيْهِ وَهَدَى. So God chose him and forgave him and guided him. So they guided him, al-hidayah, al-Razi is saying here, al-hidayah, al-irshad, that is guidance, ila nafa, to what is beneficial. والمراد بها إذا ذكرت مع الاختباء في القرآن النبوءة. So he's saying that when this hidayah, this guidance, is mentioned together with ijtiba, which means choosing, in the Quran, this is referring to an-nubu'ah, which means the prophethood. كما في هذه الآيات الثلاثة, as in these three verses. And so he's, which other two verses is he referring to? He's referring to other verses in the Quran that mention this word, al-ijtiba, together with hidayah. So that's in Surah Al-An'am, verse number 87, and Surah Al-Nahl, verse 121. So then that's how Muslims get the idea that Adam is a prophet. So if he's a prophet, like, who is he giving the prophethood, the prophetic message to? Of course, classical Muslim scholarship did not know the proofs for the theory of evolution, and those proofs became solidified up until very, very recently, when the genetic studies had risen to that extent that one can make this firm declaration about the theory of evolution. And so the laity don't know about this. Even we may have persons here. If I look in the chat, I wouldn't be surprised if I find some Muslims saying, "Wait a minute, you're saying that evolution is true? It cannot be true," and so on. That's how Muslims have been taught, and Christians as well. But many Muslims are open to the idea of the theory of evolution, and recently, maybe a few years ago, the Dean Institute in the UK hosted a day-long seminar or colloquium in which they had a number of speakers addressing this subject of evolution, and they took, the speakers took different sides, but there were people who are scientists, and they came forward and they said, from what we know of science, this is, this is fine, and this theory is viable, and we as Muslims and as scientists have no difficulty embracing both. We're both Muslims and we're scientists and evolutionary scientists to boot. So this is well known. So that's the first thing I wanted to clarify, that it's clear then that Sam knew that the verse that I quoted says in Arabic ijtabahu, and he's able to say these Arabic words. He says it says ijtabahu, but it doesn't mean that God chose him in the way that Shabir said. It's only that God chose him for repentance. So. But the verse doesn't say that in Arabic, that God chose him for repentance. So that's the first thing. I'll come back more about this theory of evolution because that occupies a longer discourse, and I'm going to leave that to the end. So, but I treated that as a separate issue. Is the theory of evolution a viable theory to begin with, and how it impacts on Christianity? So I'll come back to that. The second issue I wanted to deal with is that Sam is answering on behalf of Christianity to my point about the extent of the atonement of Jesus. So my point basically to Anthony was a question to Anthony. And here you can see the excessiveness of Sam Shamoun in trying to condemn people, in that I raised it as a question. So, and then, Sam Shamoun is taking it as a statement, and then, lambasting me, this is a liar, a son of the devil. Look, there is a verse of the Bible which says the contrary of what he's saying, but I didn't say it. I didn't say anything. I was asking a question, and it was Anthony's turn to answer the question. And though Sam Shamoun says, okay, Anthony did an excellent job. I'm not, putting this video to help his case, but of course he is trying to help the case, as it turns out, because he's providing the answer that Anthony didn't provide. And it turns out in the end that the answer he's providing actually is a critique of Anthony as well, though he just slides that in towards the end. He made it like it is a major critique of people like James White and Matt Slick and so on. And then towards the end he says, and Anthony has the same problem too. But so he just, his conscience couldn't let him hold that part back. And he admitted that this actually, what he's saying, is a refutation of Anthony as well. So it really doesn't help the debate if he comes out trying to support Anthony, but then at the same time he is critiquing Anthony. So what's the issue here? The issue is about the extent of Jesus's atonement. So when he died on the cross, according to Christian theology, did he die for everyone, or he died only for a chosen few? So Anthony's position, the Calvinists' position in general, those who at least subscribe to 5-point Calvinism, is that Jesus died for everyone. Okay, but that's not Anthony's position. The Calvinist position is that Jesus died only for the chosen, the elect ones, and that is Anthony's position. But Sam Shamoun is coming from the Armenian and Eastern Orthodox position, it seems, that would allow for a greater level of atonement. So in this regard, Sam Shamoun cites Colossians chapter 1, I believe. Let me see if I can look that up very quickly. Colossians. Okay. So we're in Colossians, and he said chapter 1, I believe he wanted to read from 19 and 21. He read a longer passage, but let's see the 19 and 21. For God was pleased to have all his fullness dwell in him, and through him to reconcile to himself all things, whether things on earth or things in heaven, by making peace through the blood of his cross. Now, I think that's the most relevant portion here, and Sam presents this. Why is he presenting this? Because my question to Anthony was, let's say, I'm asking about Jesus' atonement. Did he, by dying in this world, did he die for all of the creatures everywhere? Like, there could be other Earths out there in our own galaxy. There could be Earths in other galaxies. There could be habitable planets on which there are intelligent beings, moral beings who can commit sin as well. And if they commit sin, like, what's the payment for their sin? If the blood is the only way to pay for the sin, did Jesus' sacrifice on this earth pay for all of them? And now the conundrum is this: like, if you say that Jesus died here for all intelligent beings everywhere, then why did God choose to have him die here as opposed to somewhere else? So that's one issue. And then if he has to die in each place for each, like the inhabitants of those places, then, like, is he being crucified all over again, like in all these different places? So this is the kind of conundrum that Anthony had to answer, and I don't think he had a good answer to this. He tried in a later video. Anthony did a video on YouTube, which I'll get to maybe in another post later on, but to not overcomplicate the issue at the moment, I think that in the debate he hardly scratched upon this. Like, he answered, but it was a circular type of answer. He said, well, it's here because it was here. So that's circularity. Why was it here? Well, it's here because it was here. That's the tautological statement. It doesn't really answer the question. Now, Sam's answer is in this verse, that through Jesus, God was reconciling to himself all things, whether on things on earth or things in heaven. But by saying things on earth, notice it's earth in the singular. So Sam does not really have a proof that if there are multiple earths out there, then Jesus died for the people on all those multiple earths. Unless Sam is trying to say that heaven means everything that is beyond our earth. Maybe he has that meaning, but he did not clarify that meaning. And as he was explaining this, there were people who were objecting to him on his site or whatever. I listen to this only when I'm driving. I don't have the time to sit down and listen to hours of Sam Shamoun. But when I'm driving, I listen to this at above normal speed. Because again, the time and patience to listen to the whole thing, mostly the time though. And nowadays, because of COVID, I don't drive about too much, so sometimes I have to make do with the bare minimum. So in any case, I couldn't see who was responding to him, whether it's a Muslim or a Christian, but it seems that it's his own Christian following that are objecting to him as he's trying to expound the verse, because he's trying to say that this means, if there are aliens out there, then Jesus died for them as well, as if he is almost conceding the point that there could be aliens out there. And he's trying to say, no, I'm not saying that there are aliens out there. I'm just saying that if there are, then Jesus died for them as well. But of course, that hinges a lot on the idea of multiple earths, and this is not, evident in the verse that he is citing. Moreover, he said that it happened here because human beings are the crown of God's creation. So I tried to look up the Bible to find out where's he getting the idea that human beings are the crown of God's creation, and I couldn't find that there is any verse that says that human beings are the crown of God's creation. So it is possible that though human beings are created in the image of God, they're not the only ones who are created in the image of God. And then what do we mean by human beings? We mean only the human beings that we see here on this earth, or are there human beings other than the children of Adam? And that brings me now to the last point, which is about the theory of evolution in general, and whether or not Muslims can accept this theory of evolution. So he went on and on to try to show, look, from the Quran, it is clear that you cannot accept that this theory of evolution, and Shabir is way off base here. And then he quotes verse after verse of the Quran to show that Adam was a special creation and created from dust. And look, Shabir is saying that Adam wasn't created from dust. No, I never said that. I never said that. He's taking it as a dichotomy. Either Adam, came into the world through this process of evolution, or he must have been created from dust. He's seeing this as two different possibilities, but I see them as the same thing intertwined, that God is creating through the process of evolution. That process is a very lengthy one, going through many different changes and forms. And the origin of Adam can be described as in this way, that he is created from dust, but it doesn't mean that he is not created from parents. So we ourselves, according to the Quran, are created from dust. In fact, one of the passages that Sam Shamoun cited from the Quran, he seems to be missing the meaning of, though he's trying to give his own meaning, like as if he's an exegete of the Quran, as if he's the master commentator here. But let me look at that. I'll just bring that up very quickly. I'm looking at the islamawakened.com site, where you have many translations found side by side, or I should say one after another. And now I'm looking for Surah Ar-Rum, the 30th chapter. And I want to look at, let's say, verse number 16. And let me look at the Pictal translation, because this is where he was going. So Pictal translation. Okay, I've gone to the site where I will have to buy the book. So how do we get there? Okay. So verse number 16, but as for those who defeated, then 17, glory be to God, unto him he bringeth forth the life and his signs. Okay, so we're at 30, verse number 20. And of his signs is this, he created you of dust, and behold, you human beings ranging widely. Now, he created you from dust. This is the plural, and it's we, the readers. So God created us, all human beings, from dust. So, but that doesn't mean that we didn't have parents, you see? So he is citing the same verse, but he is trying to give his own explanation to avoid this obvious meaning that we ourselves can be said to be created from dust. His explanation is that because we are somehow in Adam, so when God created Adam from dust, that means God created us from dust as well. But you can extrapolate that backwards and say that Adam was said to be created from dust because just like we are said to be created from dust because we are in Adam, so Adam was in some progenitor as well, and that's why he could be said to be created from dust. So he can't escape the point that way. Now, he cites verses which, so in short, the conclusion of that is that saying that Adam was created from dust and saying that Adam had parents, these are not two diametrically opposing statements. These two can be reconciled by saying that though Adam is born of parents in his time, the whole series of evolutionary steps are such that the result, and this is what I would say actually, that the result is that the human composition is such that we have much in common with the minerals of the earth, and this is what is really meant by the statement that God created us of dust. Just like when the Quran says, خُلِقَ الْإِنسَانُ مِنْ عَجَلٍ, human beings are created from haste. So human beings are created from dust, human beings are created from haste. So where is haste? Haste is a mental, predisposition. So you might say human beings are created from haste. The simple Arabic statement would mean that human beings are created with a predisposition to be hasty. So it requires an explanation. In a similar way, human beings are created from dust means, it needs no explanation now, it means that human beings are created with many elements that are there in dust. So it is not such a straightforward thing to say that just because it says that human beings are created from dust, we must take it so literally to say that, like the Bible says, that God took the dust and formed Adam in this way. And of course, Quranic verses seem to give the same indication as well. Now, as for the creation of the woman from the side of the man, the Quran does not have this story, though the story is in the Hadith, but not in the Quran. So if we're asking about the Quran alone, and not to say that Hadiths are unimportant, but we must understand the Quran by itself first before we add anything else to it, whether Hadith or any other commentary on the Quran. Hadith is a commentary on the Quran, and we'll get to that, but initially, we need to know what does the Quran actually say before we add something that may dilute it or might even change the meaning while we think that we're adding commentary. We may be actually conflicting with the Quran. To be sure, when the Quran speaks about the story of Adam and Eve, the Quran does not have this idea that does not show anything to indicate that Eve was taken from Adam. It says, وَخَلَقَ مِنْهَا زَوْجَهَا, and God created from that soul its spouse. Now, it so happens that soul, for example, in Surah 4, verse number 1, and that mentions this, soul in Arabic is grammatically feminine. But that, of course, does not determine the final meaning. It just is very interesting that way. So God is saying that he created the soul, which grammatically is feminine, and then from it, literally from her, God created its mate, zawj, which is grammatically masculine. So it seems, if one wants to press the case, one might actually argue it the other way around. And if one goes to Surah 7, where this is described in some more detail, we find that there is an indication almost as if if you trace the reference to the male and the female, till we get to Adam laying with his wife, there's the male laying with her, then you will see that it seems as if the female was created first. And this is further corroborated from Surah Al-Zukhruf, or Surah Al-Zumar. I have to refresh my memory on which exactly that is now. So in any case, I'll get to it if in case you have a question about that, but I won't delay myself go looking for it at this moment, though I'm curious. I'm going to look for it afterwards. So the bottom line is that when one takes the Quran the way that our classical interpreters did, one will come away with the idea that the Quran is just like the Bible, and it corroborates the story of the Bible. God created Adam, shaping him from clay, and then put him to sleep, took one of his ribs, made Eve his wife. But the Quran does not have all of this. And from what the Quran says, it is possible to reconcile this with the emerging and now solidified theory of evolution. And we find that a number of Muslim thinkers have actually gone the route of accepting the theory of evolution as a whole. So I have with me here the translation of the Quran by Abdullah Yusuf Ali. This edition was published by Kamil Muslim Trust for the Islamic Propagation Center, which was headed by Sheikh Ahmad Didat. And here, in looking at Surah 21, Surah 21 and verse number 30, I believe, is what I need. Okay. Which says, verse number 30 says, "Do not the unbelievers see that the heavens and the earth were joined together as one unit before we clove them asunder, and we made from water every living thing? Will they not then believe?" So every living thing from water, the footnote here is 2691. And Yusuf Ali has this to say. About 72% of the surface of our globe is still covered with water, and it has been estimated that if the inequalities on the surface were all leveled, the whole surface would be underwater, as the mean elevation of land as a sphere level would be 7,000 to 10,000 feet below the surface of the ocean. This shows the predominance of water on our globe. That all life began in the water is also a conclusion to which our latest knowledge in biological science points. Apart from the fact that protoplasm, the original basis of living water, is liquid or semi-liquid and in a state of constant flux and instability, there is the fact that land animals, like the higher vertebrates, including man, show in the embryological history organs like those of fishes, indicating the watery origin of their original habitat. The constitution of protoplasm is about 80 to 85% of water. So that note shows that the author of these notes basically accepts the theory of evolution, that the human embryo is going through the various stages, at one time looking like a fish, and that just betrays the history of the evolutionary history on the whole. That of course human beings came from an origin which was once an aquatic origin. And we have here a writing from Dr. Mustafa Mahmoud, one of my favorite authors, especially for his book Al-Hiwar Ma'a Sadiq al-Mulhid, and the dialogue with my atheist friend. So in this book, Understanding the Quran, he goes here at length about the theory of evolution, to the extent that you will say, okay, this guy really, he knows the whole theory and he accepts the whole theory. And then he puts a kind of caveat at the end, which may be like, maybe because of the environment in which he's working, he has to be careful what he says, lest, that becomes a reason for somebody to try and harm him. Allah knows best what's in his mind. But along the traditional lines, we have David Solomon Jalajel, who studied traditional Islam, and he wrote this book entitled Islam and Biological Evolution. And in this book, he shows a great deal of knowledge about the theory, and also he knows classical Islam. And he's saying at the end that we can accept all of the theory, except that when it comes to human evolution, we have to say that God created Adam, but created him within that evolutionary paradigm. There, everything else around Adam, everything else is evolving, and there are apparently other creatures as well. I'm looking for a diagram that he has composed for this book, and which may give the idea at a quick glance. But I don't find the diagram here in a hurry, and I don't want to delay you. So maybe at a later date we'll find that, and I'll show you what it is, what it looks like. So in any case, this comes very close to accepting the theory, but it hesitates when it comes to the evolution of Adam. And lastly, I want to show you this book entitled "What is the Origin of Man" by Maurice Bucaille. Maurice Bucaille is most known to Muslims for his book, The Bible, the Quran, and Science. And in this book, What is the Origin of Man? The Answers of Science and the Holy Scriptures, he comes to the conclusion in the end that evolution of everything else should be accepted, and he cites many verses of the Quran that shows that human beings are also part of that evolutionary process. But then in the end, he says that there can be two approaches here. One approach would be that to say that God, everything else was evolving, but when it came to human beings, God created human beings specifically within that evolutionary history. And then, of course, human beings continue to evolve from there. Or one can say that human beings also are part of that evolutionary process. However, he adds, if you take the first view that human beings were created directly within that evolutionary history, then there would have been creatures at that time who already existed before human beings. And those creatures would be very similar anatomically to human beings. Why? Because those creatures have evolved and developed to be adaptable to that environment in which human beings are now to be created. So if human beings are going to be created and they too have to be adapted to that environment, naturally they will be anatomically similar to the creatures which are around them and already have evolved. So in my own humble evaluation of all of this information coming from scientists, coming from Muslims, and coming from Christians, coming from others, my own humble conclusion is that we don't need to have this two-pronged approach saying it could be this or it could be that, because it's not necessary to posit that human beings were a special and different creation apart from the whole evolutionary process. What we need to affirm, in my humble opinion, and this is just an opinion, I can change that view tomorrow because it's not an article of faith. What I would say is that it is not necessary for Muslims to deny the general theory of evolution, and also it is not necessary for us to deny that human beings are part of that evolutionary process. And in that case, we can interpret the verses of the Quran in a way that is compatible with that theory. Now, Sam Shamoun goes on and on about the verses that say, Ya Bani Adam, Ya Bani Adam, Ya Bani Adam. So, how do we reconcile this? If there were some 7,000 to 10,000 people alive at the time where we place Adam, and he was only one of that larger community to whom he is a prophet, then how do we reconcile all of these verses that say, Ya Bani Adam? Well, it's possible that we are all children of Adam, but the children of the other people at that time did not survive. And I'm now reading a book by Swami Das, Joshua Swami Das. Let me see if I can hold that book up for you. So this is the book, The Genealogical Adam and Eve, in which he's arguing that our genealogical ancestry can be very recent, and the surprising science of universal ancestry, Joshua Swami Das. Okay, so I'm still reading this book. I'll have more to say about it in the future, but this alerts us to the idea that it doesn't mean that if we accept that there are other people who are alive at the time of Adam, that their descendants survive. We could very well be survivals of only the one ancestor that, so there's a detailed argument. I'm still studying that, but it shows that there is a possibility. It's not a cut and dry thing that, if you say there were other people along with Adam, some 7 to 10,000 people, then their descendants must be here as well. No, maybe they are, maybe they aren't, but that requires some further discussion and study. Moreover, what is important to recognize is that when the Quran says Ya Bani Adam, it doesn't mean that everybody is Bani Adam. Like when the Quran says, O children of Israel, it doesn't mean that everybody is children of Israel. It means the Quran is addressing those people at that time. The Quran is addressing Bani Adam at a certain time. The Quran is addressing Al-Insan at the same time, and at some times. Ya Ayyuhan Nas, the Quran is addressing people at some time, all people in general, and so on. So one has to see what the Quran is addressing at the time. I'm not making a definitive statement about this. I'm just saying that there are many different possibilities which still have to be explored. And one cannot say, if jump on a certain meaning just because that's the meaning that you want at the moment. One has to allow for a variety of possible meanings. And so Sam Shamoun says, look at this. It's saying Ya Bani Adam, so it must mean that this is an address. That means that all people are from Adam, but the Quran does not make that particular statement. I'm not denying that we're all children of Adam, but I'm saying that you cannot pin that on the Quran itself. A hadith says, "Kullukum banu Adam," you are you are all children of Adam. Wa Adam min turab, and Adam is from dust. So a hadith says that, but the Quran itself does not say that. So I think I'm going to leave it at that and get to your questions and comments, and let's see where this leads. So let me see who is here. Thank you all again for joining me. And we have Elisa. Let me just move this to a new window so that I can see your comments directly under the camera, and I wouldn't be looking away every time. Okay. So here we are. Okay, Elisa Aruf saying salam, wa alaikum salam, and Zaman saying salam from Jeddah and from the Zaman family. MashaAllah, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you and the Zaman family. Wa alaikum salam. And Adam saying Ameen, probably to a dua, and Ameen to that dua. Ibrahim Abdul Razak, you're a great man. Thank you. Thank you, Ibrahim. Please keep praying for me. Sister Lubika from Belgium saying Assalamu alaikum, our greetings for you. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you and your family. Thank you, Sister Lubika. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you and your family as well. But Maqsood, your beard outlook looks totally artificial, and what type of fashion is that? So I'll tell you something about this beard. So since I was a youth, I never shaved my face. When I wanted to shave it recently, I had to ask my sons for their advice on how to do this. So what led me to this? So as you know, if you see some videos of me from 2 years ago, you will see that it's almost totally covered, except for my mustache, which I've always been shaving. But the beard usually came up to the size of my face here. So when we started wearing masks during this pandemic, I found that the mask does not sit very well under my chin with a large stock of hair here. It tends to ride up, and then the upper part gets under my eyelids, and making it uncomfortable for me. So that's one issue. And then the other issue is that the hairs from under here will tend to ride up. Like when the mask is riding up as a whole, then it would bring up some of the hairs from here, and the hairs from here will start getting into my mouth. And that made me worried, because if the hairs themselves are if there's the coronavirus on the hair, and then the hair gets into my mouth, that could be an issue. So just as a precaution, I did this to keep the hairs out of my mouth and to keep my mask properly fitted. Now, AMJA, the Association of Muslim Jurists of America, ruled on the question recently about shaving the beard or clipping it in order to let the mask fit properly. And I don't recall that they said anything about shaving, but they said that you can clip the beard a little bit in order to make the mask fit properly. So anyway, I hope that I haven't done anything wrong, and hopefully when this pandemic is over, then we can go back to the way we were. I myself, I don't have time to keep shaving my face. I'd rather use that time to be looking into some verse of the Quran or a hadith or something like this, or to read a book. I have so many books to read, and I'd rather be reading a book than shaving my face. But anyway, that's the story. Okay, Mahmoud Al Fawzan, Assalamu alaikum wa alaikum assalam. And Zahir, easy solution. Did he believe in zakat? If he did, then it means nothing arrived from sky for anyone, even the verse of Quran. Read 13, verse 31. Okay, Brother Zahir, that's an interesting thought there. Let me see if I can look at that verse myself, 13, verse 31, and see what it says, because I'm not so familiar with the point that you're making, and I learn something every day. So, Surah 13, verse number 31, what does it say? It says, وَلَوْ أَنَّ قُرْآنًا سُيِّرَتْ بِهِ الْجِبَالُ أَوْ قُطِّعَتْ بِهِ الْأَرْضُ أَوْ كُلِّمَ بِهِ الْمَوْتَى بَلِ لِلَّهِ الْأَمْرُ جَمِيعًا أَفَلَمْ يَيْأَسِ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا أَنْ لَوْ يَشَاءُ اللَّهُ لَهَدَى النَّاسَ جَمِيعًا وَلَا يَزَالُ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا تُصِيبُهُمْ Bima sana'u qari'atun. I read the same verse, brother. The English translation says, and if that was any Quran, and if it was, let me read from a non-literal translation. From Muhammad Asad, for example. Yet, even if they should listen to a divine discourse by which mountains could be moved, or the earth cleft asunder, or the dead made to speak, they who are bent on denying the truth would still refuse to believe in it. Nay, but God alone has the power to decide, and so on. So is that the verse we were looking at? You wanted me to see? What is that verse? Surah 13, verse number 31. Let me go back and see where we were. Surah 13, verse 31. That's the verse, but I don't see what it has to do about zakat, brothers here. Please clarify. Okay. Mahmoud Al Fawzan, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala continue to guide and protect you. Thank you, Brother Mahmoud, for that dua. I need that. Brother Zahir Ahmed saying also read Surah 6, verse 7. Even Quran arrived not written on pages. Yes. Okay. And Zahir Ahmed, the creation of Adam is a mi'raj of Adam. He dreamed his creation. That is all. Oh, that's an interesting concept. I never thought about that. That requires some more explanation and supporting proof. My brother Shakir is saying, very good, keep going. Salaam alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. May Allah protect you, my brother, and your family. Ibrahim Namaru, assalamu alaikum. Sheikh, please check your inbox. Okay, did you send me an email, my brother? I'll try to look at that. As here, just like vision of Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam at the time of war, of ditch while striking a giant rock. Okay, maybe. Zahir, the Muslim problem is we are trying to understand the Quran with the help of biblical stories. So Quran is not different from Bible. In reality, we need to use philosophical knowledge to understand the Quran, just like Mirza Ghulam Ahmad. I'm not sure about whether Muslims need to go that route, Brother Zahir. I'm sure that there are a lot of good things that Mirza Ghulam Ahmad said, but from the Sunni point of view, his claim to be Jesus returned, this was a difficult one for Muslims to accept. Okay, and Zahir Ahmed, if according to Quran, Allah can make some problem makers, monkeys and pigs, why he cannot make monkeys and pigs evolve to humans? Okay, that's an interesting point. Qadir Yasin, Qadir Yasi, I'm so sorry I'm not able to read your name correctly, my brother. Please forgive me for that. Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Shabir Ali. Dr. Muslim Mahmoud does say does say this about evolution in his book, Dialogue with an Atheist, on page 147. The entire subject continues to be open for investigation. All that science has ventured so far are guesses. Okay, that's interesting. I read that book a long time ago, and this is a more recent one. So has he gone further from what he has described in that book? I think so, because while he says that whole thing is open for investigation, what is he? As I said, he even adds a caveat here, but how much is this caveat? Anyway, it'll take long to go through it, but it seems to me like he's describing the theory of evolution as if like this is a fact, and then he adds a caveat at the end. So he may still have been developing in his thought, and God knows best. We're all learning all of the time, and we all work within constraints, in given our time and place and so on. Al-Hajj Ilyas Olajiri Ajibola. Amin to dua, and thank you, my brother Al-Hajj. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect you and all of the people around you, and forgive me if I mispronounce your name. Brother Farhan from Bahrain saying, Salam alaikum, Dr. Shabir. Stay always blessed, and you too, my brother, and all of the people around you. And Al-Hajj saying, Dr. Shabir, what is Islam's perspective about the mortgage and life insurance concerning about the interest riba? Okay, so that's another topic that has to be discussed at length, my brother, but just to be quick, and then I end this broadcast today. As we know, the Quran prohibits interest, but that's the interest that a person takes. The Quran prohibits the taking of interest or the eating of interest. The Quran says, "Alladhina yakuluna riba," those who eat interest. La ta'khudhu riba, la ta'kulu riba, la ta'kulu riba, do not eat interest. Wa akhdhihim riba, and their taking of interest. So it's always the taking or the eating of interest that is prohibited in the Quran. So, in an interest transaction, we have the person who's taking it, the person who's giving it. The person who's giving it may be a person in need. A person needs a loan to buy a car, to get to work, for whatever reason. But the person who is taking the interest has no need to take the interest. That person already has money. And so that taking of the interest from the Quranic point of view is based on greed and so on. You rather should loan money to your fellow human being to give them an easy life, as you already have an easy life and you have money to spare. So you should not be taking interest. That taking of interest is a kind of an oppression, and that is what the Quran is against. Now, if one is going to buy a house that the person is going to live in, and that's what the person needs for himself or herself and family, then the European Fatwa Council, studying issues that are relevant to Muslims who live as minorities in Europe and America, they have come up with a ruling saying if you're going to buy the house that you're going to live in, not one for business purposes, then you can use the conventional mortgage if there are no better options available. And so, that's the short answer. We can go more into detail with it, but that's the short answer at the moment. And Zahir saying, please tell me why zakat is a pillar of Islam if Prophet believed things arrived from the sky. So I'm not so sure I understand the point of your question, Brother Zahir. I'm so sorry about that. Please explain on another occasion if necessary, but not now because I'm going to be ending it now very soon. Okay, and Brother Shazmin, that could be sister. I'm so sorry if I make a misjudgment in that way. Shazmin Rafiq saying, Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh, the categorization of sin into major and minor, or 7 sins. Why there should be a categorization when sin is a sin? So yes, now there are all kinds of sins, right? And if we have to, if you have a list of 1,001 sins and you have to avoid them all, it's like you're walking, on, you're trying to step as if there are mines all around, and you're trying to step. And you're right. If there are mines all around, you don't want to hit anyone. But if the situation is such that you might hit a few anyway, because you can't avoid them all, then you need to know which are the major ones, which ones will blow you to pieces, and which ones may hurt you a little bit, but you will still survive. So that if you make a mistake, you make a mistake with the smaller ones, but you don't make a mistake with the big ones. So that's why we need to differentiate between the big and the not so big. And the Quran itself makes that differentiation. The Quran says in تجتنبوا كبائر ما تنهون عنه نكفر عنكم سيئاتكم وندخلكم مدخلا كريما. If you avoid the major things that we have prohibited you from, then we will forgive you the minor ones, and we will give you a grand reception. So we have that differentiation, and it's for a good purpose. But you're right, sin is sin. We should try to avoid them all. Noman Falahuddin saying salam and lots of love and regards from Pakistan. Thank you, my brother, and lots of love and regards to you and all of the people of Pakistan. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you all. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless all of the Muslims all over the world. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless the entire world. May Allah keep the world safe and all of its people safe from COVID-19, from sickness, disease, and distress and stress. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect people everywhere, protect the environment, protect the animals, protect the plants, protect the world. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you all. I look forward to seeing you again next Sunday with another such live post. And in the meantime, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. If you'd like to help the mission, please do so. Go to my website, islaminfo.com, and that's where you can send us a donation to keep this mission alive, so that we can continue to broadcast the message of Islam to all corners of the globe. Assalamu alaikum, peace and the mercy of Allah be with you